You're talking about a line drive of about 100 to 110 miles per hour, leaving a person, possibly zero point 0.6 seconds to move out of the way.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for coming back to another recording of Foul Ball Safety Now Talks. I'm Jordan Scott. I'm here with Brianna Ludwig. Excited to bring on our guest in a few minutes where they'll lead the discussion for some time. So we're excited to bring on our guest shortly. But before we go there, we want to talk a little bit about how Foul Ball Safety Now began and bring up some news. So Foul Ball Safety Now started back in 2019. I've been a longtime baseball fan, still am. What had happened was I saw morning news, which was very disturbing. It showed, unfortunately, a little girl getting hit by a hard ball, hard line drive, and it's definitely sent an antenna up my spine that it was time to say something about that because I was sort of aware of the issue from years past, sitting in compromised situations where I thought I was too close. One time during a playoff game in 2006, I was a few seats away from Jerry Seinfeld, and I was like, why would people sit down here? It's pretty nerve-wracking. This even years past in Brooklyn when I was in Coney Island with a group of people, young and old, and we were just outside the ballpark, just standing outside, hanging out, and a ball comes over the side and hits a young person we were with right in the forearm and left a big mark on his arm. He didn't need any first aid, but certainly we all noticed. He felt it, and it was pretty nerve-wracking, to say the least. And even fast forward to 2025, we know of a situation in Modesto, California, where it's not unusual that maybe 10 or 15 balls are raining over the sides when it comes to foul balls during a 3-hour period. And that's Brooklyn, that's Modesto, and that may be 169 other professional ballparks, affiliates of the major leagues. And I think we can address this issue and finally come up with solutions. Once the issue is addressed, everyone will have great ideas. That's what we want to do, effectively start the conversation and come up with protocols and come up with safety measures, because I think it's long overdue. It's time to do that because the status quo just isn't right. And then I've been working with Brendan for 6.5 years. He's an investigative reporter. Brianna's been with me for more than a year. She's doing research communications. She's part of these recordings with us. Very exciting that she's around and bringing great energy. So we are following news, and to be a thoughtful voice in foul ball safety now, it does take time and money to keep up with being someone who could present the news because nobody else really is. So that's what we'll continue to do. We're excited to continue to do that. And speaking of news, we wrote a letter just a few days back. If people see the T-Mobile tab, we copied everyone or the appropriate people in Seattle. There was that broken bat incident that went over the netting in Seattle during the playoffs, which America got to all see together. So I thought that was pretty exciting for the fact that it may even start a conversation. That's what I mean by exciting. Like, oh, wow, this will finally get everyone's attention. So a batter by the name of Jorge Polanco had one of the greatest games. He just hit 2 home runs in a big game, a big playoff game with a lot of meaning. And then one of his next at bats, he breaks his bat, and the bat, we didn't know at the time, had gone over the net. He breaks his bat for an infield single, so nobody really knows where the bat had gone. But when they had broken to commercial around 5 minutes later, you had seen the broken bat come into the seats like a boomerang that could pierce your heart. And you even hear the announcers say, yikes, look out, almost like including that as part of all the excitement going on, the ambiance and the excitement of the game. And yeah, we even have broken bats coming into seats like boomerangs. Yikes, look out. Nobody on social media said anything. Nobody on the news made any stories about it. We couldn't believe that nobody said peep. And I was like, did everyone just see what we saw or what I saw? So we wrote Seattle the day of or the day after, and we didn't hear back. And just a couple of days ago, we wrote a letter. We hope that Seattle will take care of that situation. But it's not only Seattle. It could be other compromised places where nets are not high enough to block the bats or the balls from coming into the seats. So people, please, I encourage you to look at the T-Mobile tab and check that out. And even to go side by side with that, there's been this commercial that I constantly see, even saw it yesterday during the football game. So this commercial's been playing since the summer. You have the Mayhem guy from Allstate Insurance. He's in a park and he takes his bat, he swings it, and it goes over the fence right into a window. And there's actually a woman in the car I noticed yesterday. So she could have been just outside her car and you can see what the bat had done to the window. Imagine if she was just getting out of the car and the bat happened to just go that way 1 inch or 3 feet, it would have hit her, and it would have been serious damage. And we're aware of a case, unfortunately, where a little girl was hit in by a bat, and, we learned how they put this family through the ringer. It was a long trial proceedings. After 6 or 7 years, there was finally a settlement, and why did they make this family go through hell, before they gave this family the treatment that they needed? And now they have a settlement where they're really not free to talk about it, and they basically have bare minimum care for the kid who's nonverbal. And, we'll get into that. Maybe the guest that we have coming on will, want to talk about that some more, and I certainly will be talking about that as we go forward. So, excited to bring on our guest. Brianna, how are you today?
Doing good, Jordan. I'm excited to have this conversation today and shed some light on this issue. So, without further ado, I'd love to bring on our guest, Dr. Diana Valsich. She is an emergency medicine and sports medicine doctor. Welcome, Diana.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Hey, Diana. How you doing?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
We're doing good. We're doing good. We're trying to maintain some news and some conversation. So we're excited that you're on, and we're excited for you to take the lead and take the conversation where you think it should go.
Okay, well, as an emergency medicine and sports medicine doctor, I have great concern over the safety of people watching sports, as well as those playing them. I unfortunately do get to see the devastating results of what happens to people who are hit by foul balls and splintered bats in the stands, and the results can just be completely crippling. And I think all of us, without the education that you get from here, would see the net behind the plate and say, well, that's got to be enough, right? The MLB isn't going to put people in harm's way. If they've got netting up, it's got to be enough to keep the fans safe, but it's not. And we really need to take strides to make sure that they do their job and, continue to protect the fans the same way they do the players. With that in mind, I would like to go over a study that I was just reading recently that followed a total of 33 fans from Major League Baseball spectators at 20 different venues. Their ages ran from age 4 through 69, and they were all injured in different ways. 15% of the injuries were under or equal to the age of 13, and 64% were male. There was 6 fatalities, which equaled 18% of the total, and 27 non-fatal injuries, which was 82% of the total. All fatalities were primarily a consequence of traumatic brain injury from blunt head trauma. Injuries involving trauma to the face and skull also occurred in the majority of non-fatal events, including skull fractures and traumatic brain injury, as well as retinal detachment. The cohort that was observed, death or injury that was caused by foul balls, was 39% of the injuries. Fall resulted in 27% of the injuries. Stray baseball bats resulted in 15% of the injuries, and violent assaults were from 6% of the injuries. These were all people who sought out medical attention. But it's important to note that the foul ball caused more injuries than fall and assault combined. That's, not even including the baseball bat. The other thing is, concussions, which obviously some work has been done in that area recently. A lot of work has been done to try to weed out the different things. And we've gone from, calling them grade 1 concussion to mild, moderate, severe, and based on the symptoms and the findings on exam. But it's important for people to know what they should be looking for because they may get hit by a ball and not think it's a big deal because they're not aware of what constitutes something that needs medical attention. So there's a lot of different complaints, obviously, headache being a big one, but mostly it's concerning when the headache is getting worse or and won't go away, doesn't respond at all to Tylenol. Any persistent nausea or repeated episodes of vomiting, especially in close succession. Obviously, any kind of convulsions or seizure activity is immediate call for medical attention. Confusion or behavioral changes. So, any unusual behavior for the person, they not just have to seem confused, but even if they don't seem themselves. One of the big things that they do now with sideline protocols is have athletes complete a questionnaire or testing before the season starts to get a baseline.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then they have this baseline to compare it to, and that's kind of the best way to weed out a concussion.
So, tell us the name of the study, first of all, because maybe we're not familiar with it.
Oh, well, this is just going over the KV testing, which is basically it's just a protocol where athletes are given testing to read off numbers and
Mhm.
single numbers in quick succession and given that as a baseline. And then after that, that's they when they do it again at the sidelines after an injury, it's if there's a deviance of greater than 5 seconds or
Mhm.
more errors than they did on their initial testing, it's
Mhm.
considered positive for possible concussions.
We are definitely concerned about what the players' experiences are on traumatic situations when traumatic situations come about. But we are primarily talking about the fans, as you brought up at the beginning, that the nets are illusions of solutions, but they're not necessarily solutions. So it may be giving people a false sense of security because you're behind the net and it's carefree la di da, which is not the case. In regards to the when you had talked about the six fatalities, we're talking about fans. So we are aware in professional baseball since 1970, we're aware of three fatalities, maybe not six. So I guess maybe this is from athletes potentially or coaches that have been on the field.
The study was all types of injury at a stadium, so the other fatalities may have been from falls or violent assault.
Okay,
But
that's
what
right.
she
There
had
have
wanted
been
to point out,
falls.
I believe, was that the foul ball injuries in the study, which was of generalized injuries in stadiums, not specific to foul balls, but the numbers showed that foul balls were making up more injuries than falls and assaults combined, which is pretty interesting.
Okay, terrific, guys. I mean, I'm glad. Thank you so much for this information. So, thank you, Diana. That was great, and thank you, Brianna.
My pleasure.
I brought up something earlier about there was a child that was hit by a bat, and they went through the ringer for 6 or 7 years. Where MLB probably could have made a settlement with them right away, and they finally did make a settlement, but the family lost a lot of income because of work. And now the child is getting basic needs for the rest of their life, but are they getting the extra services as a corporate executive's kid would get? I don't think so. And I think once the general public learns more about this case, I think there's going to be a cry out that MLB treated this family like garbage. And I'm looking forward for Brendan, who's been working with me to put together our report or potentially even a book on this matter because this is going to raise eyebrows. Again, we see bats coming over the netting in Seattle in 2025. Why is business as usual allowing broken bats to make their way over the nets? So it's very concerning. And we just have to put this out there so everyone can see. And hopefully, the agencies in Seattle will react. People can see our latest letter that we just put out to the community of Seattle, people that should be notified of this incident. So, dated about 5 days ago. So, we encourage people to look at that tab.
This child having been hit at such a young age
Yeah.
and not being awarded relief for so many years, it's the family and everybody is never going to be able to tell if they were awarded relief immediately, what kind of services might have been implemented early on, and if this child might have been verbal had they gotten the care they needed immediately.
Agreed, agreed,
Really?
and the general public will learn about this, and I actually had gone to the trial, and this looked like there was 5 lawyers on one side, 5 lawyers on another side. MLB does everything they can to kick the can down the road till they finally have to address it face to face, where they could have addressed this right after the incident, and instead coming up with all kinds of things on why the baby was nonverbal, coming up with delay tactics. Just what happened was there was a mistrial. That means there's a technicality. One of the sides did something wrong, so they postponed it for 3 months. But during those 3 months, then the settlement occurred. And again, all these years of the child not getting the treatment and the services they should have been seen all along. The child should have been seen all along. So this boy is nonverbal and is not getting, in my mind, all the extra treatment. Should have gotten all the extra treatment needed back when it occurred. And when people learn about some of the things that MLB had said, to defend their client, people will be raising eyebrows because all of these comments are going to be made public because it's within the court proceedings and that's public information. So I'm working slowly with Brendan to organize that. And so people can stay tuned and follow the progress of what we can produce and let everyone else's antenna go up. But we know there's fire in the theater right now. We know there's fire in the theater outside in parking lots in the places like Modesto, potentially Brooklyn. Student athletes are speaking up, like in Queens College. They want to play the game free and clear. And if people see my website, Foul Ball Safety Now, we wrote our 5th letter out to Queens College back in early January. And we did get receipt from the NCA just a few days ago. We had copied them on letter number 4 because the student athlete's psychological well-being is being messed around with. And according to the NCAA, student athletes need to be able to play the games free and clear, more or less. And we're basically saying, no, that is not the case. Student athletes in Queens College are concerned that their balls are going over the side. As he mentioned to me that there was an elementary school right next to where the field is. Well, then guys, address it because the student athletes want to play the game free and clear. That's their desire. And they should have that opportunity to hit the ball as hard as they want and not worry where the balls will be flying. There are solutions, and it's about getting a meeting together, and everyone will then come up with potential solutions. It's above my pay grade to say exactly what the solutions are, but there's agencies and MITs and all kinds of places that are just waiting for that phone call to say, what is the issue? Let's address it together, and they will. But until then, the unknown factors remain, and we are in the dark ages, 2025, now in 2026. So that's my update on that, Diana.
Oh, I definitely agree with you that it's important that the people that are in the know about how the stadiums are built, the physics involved with, the weight of a bat, how fast the ball is flying, how fast a ball can come off the bat, and the trajectory, and, put up appropriate netting with a regulatory body in place to make sure that the fans are safe.
Agreed. Agreed. We believe people like Brianna, who's a mother of a young child, she needs to have a game plan on how she goes to the game, where she parks her car, because, like in Modesto, there could be 10 or 15 balls raining down outside within a 3-hour period in all of these 169 professional ballparks. And now just scratching the surface on the colleges, because I've talked to other student athletes who are telling me they also have the desire to play the game free and clear. And they are also in situations where there's compromised netting or compromised fencing and balls are flying over sides and hitting car windows where human beings are also parking their car. Similar to Mr. Mayhem on Allstate, which I can't get out of my mind because it's been shown probably a billion times. You see this bat going over the fence right into the window. And I just noticed yesterday in the commercial, the woman is in the car. Of course, the reaction of shock may be coming up for a split second. But, that's it. We know of a situation at Yankee Stadium. People can Google Yankees Orioles, June 22nd, 2025. It's a 15-minute video. They can 15 minutes 12, 15 minutes 13 seconds. They can go to the 8-minute marker and they can see for themselves a Baltimore Oriole throwing a bat on a Sunday afternoon. Good thing that those corporate seats were empty that day because that bat went over the netting right into the seat. Crazy. Go to the 8-minute marker and let it roll. June 22nd, Yankees Orioles. 8-minute marker, 15, 20 seconds later, you'll see what I saw. It's out there. It's on YouTube for all to see. And you hear the announcers saying things like, it's always a knee-jerk and sarcastic. Yeah, let people see for themselves because this is going on in 2025. I know 30 to 40 cities in the United States of the 169 cities that still have no netting past end of dugouts where any judge in that city or state who sees that video is going to deem it unsafe for any human being to be sitting in those sections after people see that ESPN video produced in 2019, which we call Exhibit A. Why would any human being be subjected to that, let alone kid? So I would hope a judge would see that video and immediately deem it unsafe for kids or teenagers that are selling hot dogs in those sections. And OSHA should be on this and talking about that because it's 6.5 years after after the world saw this horrific video, and there's still 30 to 40 professional cities that are operating the same way. So we just have to keep reminding people about this. I've made calls to all the ballparks, all the 169 ballparks in 21, 22, and 23. I have netting reports indicating teams that didn't have netting past end of dugouts. This is way after that 2019 video aired. And, yeah, some people have upgraded and made it longer, and I could take everyone through the Manfred minutes, but I won't do that right now. Just wanna keep the conversation going, Diana.
I have 2 children of my own. They're
Uh-huh.
16-year-old twins, and,
Uh-huh.
when I take them to baseball games, we always sit in, the bleachers in the nosebleed sections,
Okay.
and they've always given me a hard time about, like, "Why can't we sit any closer?" And it's because I know where that these seats are safe from
Oh, wow.
projectiles, and I'm not gonna endanger my kids.
Listen, that's what we've always asked for. We have something on the website called Exhibit A1, which I think people can trace their steps and see if they were in compromised safety situations throughout the years where they had no idea this was happening right under their nose. This is a published report by a company or a publication called 538. They put something out in 2019, which demonstrated just how many foul balls there are per game and where the hot zones were and how often they went into those zones. So past the end of the dugout, off the top of my head, maybe 20% of the foul balls go right past the end of the dugouts. But of course, everyone's going to want to ask once they say how many balls. Well, what we did was we calculated there's 2,400 plus major league games a year, but there's also 14,000 other professional games every single year, 5 times as many more games as there are in Major League Baseball. So if there's 53 foul balls per game every single day, you just have to do the math, and you're gonna then realize, okay, 20% of the balls went past the end of the dugouts. I don't know, Brianna, if you can check out Exhibit A1 right now and
Yep.
possibly to tell
Yeah.
me how many balls, if what the percentages are, but regardless, we're talking not even 53 foul balls per game. We're talking, let's say, cut it in half, which we do, to 25. So 14,000 times 25 is 350,000 foul balls per year. And that's not even batting practice, where the woman in Modesto would sit outside the ballpark just waiting to go inside.
Yeah.
So even if that's 350,000. So if that's 20% of foul balls going into that hot zone, so that would be 75,000 if that was 20%. Everyone's gonna wanna know how many of those 75,000 balls were going at 100, or how many of them were going at 20? And baseball, almost probably to the penny, can tell us based on calculating exit velocities and launch angles for the last decade or two. There's really no getting around it. Somebody needs to subpoena MLB so we could just find out how much mud on their face there really may be.
Oh, no, I just wanted to let you know it was 49.9% of foul balls that were going just past the end of the dugouts. So
Okay. Well, I wanna go I'll even go so that might be twice as much, but either way, we wanna keep the numbers conservative so we don't look like we're inflating anything, Diana, and people can study for themselves. They could retrace the steps and understand, "Wow, we sat in those sections 4 times a year over the last 10 years while our kids were growing up. There must have been somebody concussed or blinded or worse the day before or the day after." And if that's what people decide to come up with when they revisit their memories, so be it. Because baseball's had this knowledge. They should have told us winter months about what happened the year before and what they think was going to happen the following year. And then pediatrician associations would have probably, you have to present it to the kitchen table. You have to present it to the 100 million fans. A lot of these fans may be in the business of OSHA. A lot of these fans may be in the business of lawyering. A lot of these families may be in the business of children's advocacy, whatever it may be. And they're fans, and they're just concerned about their kids. I just think we need to know this is part of our history, and broken bats are flying over the nets in Seattle, Diana, during playoffs. Announcers saying, "Yikes, look out," and not one person made peep. And I thought that was gonna effectively start the conversation, but it did not. So, we obviously need to do more.
Yeah, and it's definitely hard for us to say whether any area of the ballpark is safe. We know of people who've been hit while waiting in line for concessions. And like Jordan has mentioned earlier on this recording, the woman in Modesto who was struck outside the ballpark while waiting to go in. And we definitely can't say that just because you're sitting behind the netting, you're safe. As you can see, the two videos of bats flying over the netting in 2025 on our website. And sadly, a long list as well under incidents reported 2025 of fans injured, many of them who were sitting behind the nets. But that's why we have these conversations because they've created an illusion of safety, and we don't want anyone to be misinformed or think they can relax when not only are they in harm's way, but in a majority of states that recognize the baseball rule, they're unprotected, not just physically, but legally as well.
No, I agree completely. What I think it's important to stress is, well, a couple things. One is I'm sure people listening would say, like, well, why didn't you just get out of the way? And it's important to point out, like, the physics behind it. If an average pitch is 70 or 80 miles per hour off a standard MLB bat, you're talking about a line drive of about 100 to 110 miles per hour, leaving a person possibly point 0.6 seconds to move out of the way, which is, obviously difficult, if not impossible. Also, the number of people who've been hit by foul balls has gone up recently and seems to be in line with the usage of smartphones while people are recording the game and then they don't necessarily see the ball coming at them.
Yes. We're not superheroes and we're not action figures, and we're not really meant to be exposed to those things. And unfortunately, even a sign by your cup holder that says "Be careful," and even an announcement, this information should have been presented to the kitchen table long, long ago, not when you got to the parking lot and not when you go into the game. You have to give Brianna a whole roadmap on how to come to the game, where to park with her kid, and where to come in, so she doesn't have to worry that within those 3 hours, 10 or 15 balls are raining on the pavement or on the window, unless it did in Modesto. And I don't know why this is okay, and this is acceptable, and why nobody has reacted. There's been many broken windows in parking lots from balls. I don't know how many people have been struck outside ballparks other than, getting contacted by an attorney in Modesto, and certainly my experience more than 20 years ago in Brooklyn, where it struck a person we were with in the forearm. I just feel like we can do a whole lot more and effectively start a conversation. Long overdue. And if they get an F for certain areas, or a big fat F, depending on who interprets how bad this problem is, we want to deliver the epiphany of awareness, and that's what we will continue to do. I will continue being the only one in this space that wants to present the news, and hope bigger agencies adopt the cause, so then I could say effectively, "Look, Brianna and Brenda, we passed on the torch. We're done. Let's put out this one book on this child, or maybe put another book out about what I've done for 6.5 years, which hopefully will motivate others to select this as a thing to think about, or something maybe important to them. But certainly this has always been important to me, and we want to stop the bleeding, and that's first and foremost. And we want to address the fires in all theaters, on the baseball level, what's happening inside and what's happening outside. And we're just scratching the surface here, because new meetings and new conversations are coming with college athletes with me, which from the Queens College, and then another student from another college is now telling me some of the ballparks where he's playing at, where there's compromised safety issues over there. So we welcome this. We welcome all of the information, and who knows, maybe baseball in years to come will the landscape of all fields will look entirely different. So be it. Let's do it. There's billions of dollars that MLB is making. They could certainly nurture the safety experience. If they ever had their house in order, they could take care of all the other establishments. One more, Diana, and I'll let you chime in. In Tennessee, a high school parent, a place called White House, Tennessee. I'm putting them on the map. I've mentioned them before on some of these recordings. White House, Tennessee, a parent contacted me and said, "Hey, Jordan, we can't have baseball games and soccer games going on simultaneously. Can you help us?" And I wrote him back, and I was like, I'm not, what do you want me to do? Your situation isn't so unique, because there are other compromised situations, many, many compromised situations, which I'm beginning to learn about. But I'm glad at least they're talking about it, Diana. At least there's a level of awareness, and that's something. At least they're aware that soccer games cannot go on while baseball games are going on if the balls are leaving the field and potentially hitting the players or the people at the soccer field. So just a little bit more information on some of the work that's coming our way.
Well, I think that's a huge step in the right direction. It at least, acknowledges that this is a problem, and
Right.
that's the first step in fixing it.
That's what we are. That's what we're doing. Yes. How would you think the people in your field could potentially get involved? I'll tell you what I had done. I had a post on a platform called Indeed some months back, and it said pediatricians wanted to organize conference calls with other pediatricians. And I advertised, well, I won't tell you exactly how much I advertised, how much I was paying, but I said hundreds of dollars an hour. So, Diana, I had 35 conversations with pediatricians. With those 35 conversations, 2 out of those 35, I actually paid pediatricians to organize conferences, because their job was to bring 5 pediatricians together. So it'd be 5 or 6 people having a discussion on what I know, because, of course, I want some of those pediatricians to tell their organizations or to tell their colleagues all about what is happening. Certainly, immediately, somebody needs to step in those 30 to 40 cities that may continue to operate without netting past end of dugouts 6.5 years after the world saw that horrific video, which included the little girl from Houston who got hurt in 2019. That's what I noticed first, and that's why I got involved. And then even, Diana, I'm from New York, and I didn't even know about the little girl who got hurt at Yankee Stadium in 2017 who was part of that video. So just because this happens and it makes the no morning news for a day, it goes away. And I was like, "Oh, geez, something happened 2 years ago, Yankee Stadium, similar, right past end of dugouts." So you would think the pediatricians would want to get involved like ASAP. I thought they were okay, but unfortunately, Diana, these pediatricians were looking for side work, not necessarily looking to adopt a cause, but I was hoping something would spread from those experiences. I did when I said I spoke to 35 pediatricians, they all stayed on the phone with me for probably 30 to 45 minutes to hear my whole experience because even though maybe they had no intentions of being the coordinator I was looking for. I figured I'd just share that with you because you're a doctor. So trying different things. We're trying different things.
No, I appreciate that. One thing I would like to try to do is most specialties have a yearly conference.
Mhm.
For me, it's the American College of Emergency Physicians, or ACEP,
Mhm.
and
Right.
they generally have a lecture during this like 4 or 5 day conference on sports medicine. Is if I could see if the person presenting that would be willing to discuss foul balls and netting, at least, to get that in, to get that information out amongst emergency doctors. Since, obviously the severe injuries are going to be coming to us. I would think ER doctors would have, more would care about this a lot more than, your average person who doesn't attend games.
Oh,
That's
that would
just
be
me.
terrific. Absolutely. We're beyond this call. We'll stay in touch. And it's always great that people are inspired and feel like there is a need. So we welcome that. So that would be terrific. Okay. I mean, I think this was very productive, guys, and we all had a chance to air out our feelings, and I think that's terrific and backed up by data. And I think it's always great that we can do that on these calls.
So, Diana, how does emergency and sports medicine shape the way that you view preventable injury?
I think both sides of my training, I did an emergency medicine residency and then a sports medicine fellowship. I'm vigilant about trying to prevent injuries of all sorts. My kids complain because I won't take the car out of park until they both have their seatbelts on and they're 16. I am always trying to do everything I can to keep them safe. And I do that with my patients too. I think it's really important that people know this kind of information because the results can just be, catastrophic, and people don't know that they're in danger or in harm's way. So I think, yeah, getting the word out is basically the first step to fixing the problem.
Terrific. And that's what we're doing at Foul Ball. We're putting a lot of writing on the wall, and we're excited that people are coming in and they're bringing out their thoughtful questions and concerns. And it's really terrific that we had our guest on today, Diana and Brianna, and we will do it again soon. So thank you, everyone, and look forward to doing it again next time.